I told my son on his birthday that I regretted having him because I had always wanted a girl. Now he's staying at my sister's house, and they've come back with a lawyer to sue me. My son should never have been a boy, at least that's how I felt from the very beginning. I wanted a daughter. I planned to have a daughter. I had names picked out, clothes bought, even a pink crib. When I found out I was having a boy, I pretended to be fine with it, but deep down I knew I wasn't. I kept hoping that over time I would grow to love him the way I thought a mother should. But that never happened. Now he's 16, and we've had more bad days than good ones. He acts like I'm the villain in his life, and honestly, I've stopped pretending I care as much as I used to. His father and I divorced years ago, and ever since then, both of them have treated me like a stranger. Every visit feels like I'm there just to be judged. Last week was his birthday. I didn't want to go, but I told myself I should at least show up. I bought him a gift, nothing extremely expensive, but something I thought would be thoughtful, a brand new smartwatch in its box. Even so, it cost more than I wanted to spend, and I even skipped a few meals to afford it, though I didn't tell anyone that. I arrived at his father's house, and the place was full of his friends and family. I walked in, said happy birthday, and he barely looked at me. I tried to give him a hug, but he pulled away like I was embarrassing him. His father noticed and smirked, telling me not to start anything in front of everyone. When it was time for gifts, mine was opened last. He tore off the wrapping paper, looked at the box, and said flatly, "Oh, thanks," without smiling. I asked if he already had one, and he said, "No, but I wanted something else." Then his father laughed and said, "Guess you didn't get the memo," and everyone else laughed too, like I was the joke. I stood there holding the torn wrapping paper while he set my gift aside without another word. Then his aunt asked me to hold the phone to take pictures. I was supposed to smile and pretend nothing had happened, but I didn't. I dropped the wrapping paper, looked him straight in the eye, and told him what I'd been holding back for years, that I wished he had been born a girl, that I never wanted a son, that he wasn't wanted from the start, and that if I could go back, I'd make a different choice. The room went silent for about 2 seconds before his father told me to leave, so I did. I walked out without saying goodbye and blocked all of them as soon as I got in my car. 2 days later, I heard from a neighbor that my son had gone missing right after I left. No one knew where he was. His father came to my door that night asking if I'd seen him, and I said no. I didn't even care enough to ask where they had looked. Later, I found out he was at my sister's house, the same sister I haven't spoken to in 8 years. She's always been holier than thou, always acting like she's better than me. On the 3rd day, he came back, but not alone. He showed up at my door with my sister and a man in a suit. It turned out she had hired a lawyer. They said they were going to sue me for emotional abuse and that they wanted statements, records, everything. I didn't even invite them in. I told them I wasn't going to play the game they were trying to set up and shut the door in their faces. My phone hasn't stopped ringing since, with messages from family members telling me I've gone too far. I don't think so. I said what was true, he's not the child I wanted, and he never will be. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since the birthday. My son hasn't spoken to me once, not a word, not a message, nothing. Every time I check my phone, there's a new chain of messages from my sister or his father, but I ignore them. The only time I saw him was last Thursday, and it was by accident. I was leaving the grocery store, and he was sitting in my sister's car in the parking lot, hood up, looking at his phone. He didn't look up or react when I walked past. My sister looked at me like she was daring me to approach. I didn't. I had milk and bread in my hands and wasn't about to turn it into a public scene. Since that day, my sister has stepped up her efforts. She sent me a long email about how I should get my life together and take responsibility for the damage I've caused. She attached screenshots of messages my son had sent her, saying he finally felt safe at her house. I didn't even read them all, I deleted the email halfway through. Then the lawyer called my personal phone, and said he wanted to arrange a voluntary meeting before things escalated. I asked what he meant by escalate, and he replied that they were preparing to file for a restraining order and start a civil case. I laughed on the phone and told him to go ahead. He started saying something about protective orders and impact statements, but I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. On Saturday morning, I woke up to loud banging on my door. It was his father and my sister. My son stood a few steps behind them, arms crossed, staring at the ground. His father tried to talk over me as soon as I opened the door, saying that my behavior was unacceptable and that I needed to apologize to my son before things went any further. My sister was there, nodding like she was part of some kind of intervention. I told them I wasn't going to apologize for telling the truth, that I didn't want a son, and that wasn't going to change. My sister started lecturing me about how I was damaging a minor for life. I reminded her that he's not a child anymore, he's 16, old enough to give me back the attitude he's been giving me for years. She called me heartless. I told her to get off my property. They didn't leave right away. Finally, my son spoke. He said, "You're going to regret this," and turned back to the car. I didn't respond. Later that day, I got a letter from the lawyer in the mailbox. It said they were moving forward with the case and that I should seek legal representation. I tossed it in the trash. I don't have the money or the interest to play their game. If they want a fight, they can waste their own time and money. Now the rest of the family is taking sides. Some are messaging me saying I went too far, others say they understand me, but none of them are willing to publicly stand by me. My mother called once and told me to fix things before it's too late. I asked, "Too late for what? For them to ruin your life?" She hung up. Right now, I'm sitting in my kitchen with the blinds closed. I don't want to see them pulling into my driveway again. I don't want to see my sister's smug face or my son's fake attitude. I feel like they're cornering me, waiting for me to break. I won't. Update 2. It's been almost a month since his birthday, and I know my sister is in this for more than just protecting my son. That's the story she's selling to everyone. That's the image she's showing the rest of the family. But I know her, she's not doing this because she cares about him. She's doing it because she hates me. 8 years ago, I slept with her husband, once. We were both drunk, it was more of an accident than anything. He was venting about her, and I was feeling lonely. I didn't even like him as a person, but I liked the feeling of winning something over her for once. She found out, and she's been holding it over me ever since. She never forgave me, never intended to. That's the real reason she's in my business now. She wants to see me fall, and using my son as a pawn is the perfect way to do it. My son knows nothing about this. He probably thinks she's just the loving aunt who's always on his side. I'm sure she's spoiling him, buying him things, letting him do whatever he wants at her house. She's not just housing him, she's buying his loyalty piece by piece. Her lawyer hasn't stopped sending me emails. Every message has some new evidence they want to add to the case, screenshots of messages between her and my son, notes about things I've said in the past taken out of context, even old photos she's trying to spin to make me look unstable. I delete most of them without reading past the first sentence. Then Friday came. I was taking the trash bins to the curb when I saw her car pull into my driveway. She got out before the car was even parked and walked straight toward me. She started immediately, raising her voice about how I was avoiding the inevitable and hiding from the consequences. I told her to get off my property. She kept walking, got right in my face, and started throwing every insult she could think of, that I'm a pathetic mother, that my son would be better off never seeing me again, that the only thing I'm good at is ruining lives. I laughed in her face, because she thought she was going to get a bad reaction from me, that I'd cry or attack her. But I didn't give her the satisfaction. That's when I mentioned her husband. I told her, at least I never had to beg my husband to stay faithful to me. At least I never stayed married to a man who preferred sleeping with his own sister-in-law over being with you. She didn't keep her composure like I did. She slapped me. It didn't hurt much, but I reacted instantly. I shoved her back. She came at me again, and the next thing I knew, we were grabbing hair, scratching, hitting. She's taller, but I'm faster, and neither of us was holding back. It wasn't some movie-style fight, it was messy, clumsy, all nails, pulling, and shouting. I didn't even notice my son was there until I heard him yelling at us to stop. I don't know if he'd been in the car the whole time or if she brought him to watch, but suddenly he was between us. He tried to pull her back first, then me, but it didn't work, we were too far into it. We kept shoving, ignoring him completely. At one point, he grabbed my arm, and I yanked away so hard he lost his balance. That's when he started yelling at both of us, that we were acting like trash, that I was the reason the family was a mess, and that she was making it worse. Neither of us stopped. It was only when I heard a voice shouting from across the street that I realized a neighbor was standing on their porch with a phone. A few minutes later, a police car pulled up. The officer told us to separate. My sister immediately started crying, acting like she'd been attacked out of nowhere. Her hair was messy, and she had a couple of scratches on her arm. I had my own as well. But I wasn't going to point at them to get sympathy. The officer asked if either of us wanted to press charges. I said no. She said she'd think about it. They told her to leave, and of course she made a whole scene, walking to her car with my son like she was protecting him from me. He didn't look at me once. He got into the passenger seat and kept staring at his phone until they drove away. I stayed in the driveway, shaking, not from fear, but from rage. I knew she'd use the fight as proof that I was dangerous. I wouldn't be surprised if she showed up in court with a fake neck brace, claiming I attacked her in front of a minor. The next morning, I found another letter from her lawyer in the mailbox. It mentioned physical violence in the presence of a minor and how that would strengthen the emotional abuse case. I didn't even finish reading it, I threw it straight in the trash. Now, the rest of the family treats me like I'm toxic. A couple of cousins messaged me saying they'd heard I attacked my sister. My mother is completely on her side now, saying she's protecting my son. My father stays out of it. Half the people I've known in my life are ignoring me, and the other half are sending me messages saying they can't believe what I did. I don't know how this is going to end. She'll keep having him in her house. She'll keep poisoning him against me. She'll keep pushing the case until it goes to trial or I give in. She'll have her public victory, and she'll tell everyone she saved him from me, and he'll believe it. Maybe it's easier if he stays there. At least that way I won't have to keep looking him in the face and pretending to feel something I don't. But if my sister thinks I'm going to beg, she's out of her mind. Update 3. Last Monday, I woke up to 10 missed calls and who knows how many messages. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, cousins, old coworkers, even a neighbor I barely talked to. They were all sending me the same link. My sister had made a long Facebook post about how she was stepping into the role of protecting her nephew from a neglectful mother, meaning me. She never wrote my name, but she didn't have to. Everyone in our circle knew exactly who she meant. That's why people were sending me the link. It was a whole paragraph about how blood doesn't give you the right to abuse someone and that sometimes real family is the one that's there for you. She attached several photos of her and my son from the past few weeks, him smiling with a new video game in his hands, sitting next to her at a restaurant, her hugging him in front of her house, all meant to show everyone that he was now happy, away from me. Within hours, dozens of people had shared the post. Some left comments like, "So glad that boy has a better aunt than a mother," and similar things. Others tagged mutual friends, telling them they should know what was going on. A few people I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me asking if it was true, as if I was going to bother explaining myself to them. 2 days later, my son made his own post, not as direct, but still aimed at me. It was just an Instagram story, black background, white text, "I'm grateful for the aunt I have. Not all the fruit from that tree came into this world rotten." On Wednesday, I ran into them at the pharmacy. I was in line, prescription in one hand and a basket with other items in the other. The door opened, and in walked my sister with him behind her. She saw me immediately but didn't react, just kept walking to the counter like I wasn't even there. I kept my eyes forward. My sister looked at me and smirked. Neither of them said a word. That night, I got another email from her lawyer. They said they would be bringing a licensed therapist as an expert witness to testify about the emotional damage I'd caused. I laughed when I read that part, as if some stranger talking for 20 minutes to a judge could explain anything about all this. I deleted the email without replying. On Saturday night, around 10 p.m., there was a knock on my door. 2 police officers were there. One said they had received a welfare check request from my sister. She had told them she had serious concerns about my mental state and that my son believed I might harm myself or someone else. I told them to their faces it was a lie meant to harass me. Still, they came in, walked through the rooms, and asked me several basic questions about my health and safety. I kept my answers short. I wasn't going to give them anything they could twist. After about 10 minutes, they left. The next morning, I finally sent my son a message, the first since his birthday. It said, "If you think you can intimidate me with all of this to get something from me, you're wrong." I know he read it, because his read receipts are on. But he didn't respond to me at all. Later that day, my mother called. She said she had seen the posts online and that she was ashamed of me. She wasn't yelling, but her voice had that tone she used when I was a child, and she had already decided I was guilty. She told me I needed to take responsibility for this before it went to court. I told her they had nothing against me. She tried to argue, saying that not only would I lose my son forever if I didn't fix this, but I'd also have serious legal trouble. I told her that losing my son wouldn't be so bad, because a son wouldn't try to sue his own mother. She went quiet for a few seconds, then hung up. 2 days later, I came home from work and found a paper taped to my door. It was from my sister's lawyer, but this time it had an official court seal. It was a notice of hearing in 2 months. The charges they were pursuing were emotional abuse of a minor and physical altercation in the presence of a minor. They were attaching every bit of drama from the past few weeks to the case. I ripped it up and threw it in the trash without finishing the first paragraph. Since then, I've noticed more people treating me differently in public. The cashier at the grocery store doesn't chat with me anymore. A neighbor I used to talk to when we picked up the mail now turns and heads back to her house when she sees me. I know some people think this is the point where I start to feel remorse. It's not. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I suddenly found some maternal love I never had. I had a monster, and I feel no love for him. I'm not going to pretend I'm a great mother just because people expect a mother to love her child no matter what. You've all seen how awful he can be, that even when I tried, and even when I bought him a gift, he didn't care. He's always been that way, and that's why it's been hard to love him. My sister is trying to take advantage of that, to get under my skin for her own revenge. But all she's really doing is proving why I've kept my distance from the family for years. My sister wants to play the savior. She wants the Facebook likes, the comments about what a great aunt she is and what a terrible mother I am, the public pat on the back. She can have them. If she thinks she's rescuing him, fine, let her. But I'm not going to crawl and beg for forgiveness. That's not an option. I know exactly how this will end. She'll keep him at her house, keep buying him things, keep filling his head with how terrible I am, take this case to court, and even if she doesn't win anything tangible, she'll walk away saying she did. I don't care. I know what I am, and I know how difficult my son has been all this time. Update 4. The court date came faster than I expected. I didn't hire a lawyer. I wasn't going to waste my money on something I don't take seriously. My sister can spend all her savings on this circus if she wants, but I'm not going to treat it like some grand, dramatic fight for justice. They had nothing on me, so a lawyer seemed like a waste of money. On the morning of the hearing, I walked into the courthouse alone. My sister was already there with my son and her lawyer. She was dressed like she was going to a funeral, all in black. My son was wearing a shirt I'd never seen before, probably bought by her. He didn't look at me. When we were called, her lawyer launched straight into his rehearsed speech about a vulnerable minor subjected to years of verbal hostility, culminating in an event that caused significant emotional harm. Then they brought up the fight in my driveway. My sister sat there dabbing her eyes like she had barely survived the attack. The lawyer called it an alarming display of physical violence in front of a minor, which in simple terms meant we fought, and my son saw it. When it was my turn to speak, the judge asked if I had anything to say. I told him this was a misuse of the court's resources and that they had nothing other than the fact that I had never been able to love my son because he had always been a difficult child. I said I never wanted a son, but I had tried for years to feel something for him, and things like this are what make me think he doesn't deserve any kind of love. I saw my son tense up when I said that. Good, at least he was listening. The judge asked if I understood the impact of my words. I said yes, but that it didn't change the fact that they were true. I wasn't there to beg, I wasn't there to score points, I was there because I had to be. My sister's lawyer asked if I would be willing to attend family therapy as part of a settlement. I said no. Then he asked if I'd be willing to let my son live with my sister full-time. I said he could do whatever he wanted, I wasn't going to fight to keep him in my house. The judge looked at me like I had grown two heads. In the end, the judge didn't impose any fines but did grant a temporary no-contact order for 90 days for the minor's emotional stability. That means I can't call, text, or see him until it expires. My sister looked like she'd just won the lottery. My son didn't look at me once as they left. When I got home, there was already a new Facebook post from her, a photo of her and my son in front of the courthouse, captioned, "We've taken an important step." Dozens of comments praising her, people calling her an angel and the kind of aunt every child deserves. I glanced at it about 30 seconds before turning off my phone. Now I'm sitting here in my kitchen with the blinds closed. The no-contact order suits me just fine, it means I don't have to deal with him or her until November. By then, maybe he'll have realized I'm not going to go running after him. No, it doesn't matter either way. I know what people think when they read about this. They want to believe that every parent, deep down, cares, that deep down I'm hurt and that I miss him. They're wrong. I feel nothing. And if that makes me the villain, so be it. Update 5. The no-contact order ended last week. 90 days came and went faster than I thought. I didn't hear a single word from him or my sister that entire time, not that I wanted to. The day it expired, I half expected my sister to show up at my door to stir up more trouble about this. It didn't happen, so that was fine. 2 days later, I went to the grocery store early to avoid running into anyone. It didn't work. I was halfway down the produce aisle when I heard my name. I turned around and saw him there, pushing a cart with a bag of apples. He looked different. 90 days might not be much, but for a teenager, it can be a long time. He said, "We need to talk." I replied, "No, we don't." He stood still for a few seconds, then asked why I never tried to contact him when the order ended. I told him it was because I didn't want to. His face changed right there in the store. He asked me if I even cared, if maybe I'd never see him again. I told him I was fine with that. People started to look, so he walked away without another word. I kept shopping. Later that same day, my sister texted me, she was clearly angry, but I deleted it without replying. Since then, I've been hearing things through the grapevine. Apparently, my son has been saying he's not coming back. He says he's going to finish high school living with her, and then cut contact completely. Some relatives have tried to guilt me into calling him, saying I'll regret letting this happen. I tell them the same thing, you can't regret something you wanted. This weekend, there was a family barbecue at my parents' house. I didn't go, but I saw the photos online, my sister, my son, the rest of them, all happy and together. That told me everything I needed to know. Maybe it's better for both of us. The only thing I know for sure is this, I'm not going to apologize. Not now. Not ever. Comment. I've been reading your posts from the start, and for some reason I even looked forward to them. At first, I wanted to empathize, to think your son was the bad one for not appreciating your gift. But with each post, you come across more like a narcissist with other mental issues I can't pinpoint, because I'm not a mental health professional. That's what happens the more you write, it starts to show that you're not the victim here. You have phrases that give you away, that make you look like the bad one. I think there are things you haven't told us, and I hope someday someone else will. I don't expect it from you, because you're so caught up in your own narrative of being the good one that I can't expect honesty from you. I hope your son, your sister, or your ex can give a more complete version of what happened. Still, if I have to make a judgment, I have no doubt you're a bad mother, that there's more to this than just a rejected gift, and that your sister's infidelity is just a grain of sand in your entire attitude. Post from the Sun. I've never written my story on Reddit, but like me, I have friends, male and female, who use it, and some of them like these kinds of stories. That's how I found out about my mother's posts. They started reading them and thought it might be her because they were at my birthday party, and what she described was strangely similar, just with some details changed. But when it came to the fight with my aunt, they confirmed it could be her. I've been reading since her third to last update, but I waited until the trial was over and even until she made her last post before writing mine. I didn't want to scare her off and make her stop lying here. I could make this an incredibly long update, or a whole series with many posts. But with what I'm about to tell you, you'll get an idea of the kind of mother she is. There's no need for me to go into what she's made me go through or events from when I was 12. Hi, I just want to clear up a few things, especially about the court case, so things are a bit clearer for you. I'll start with my birthday at my dad's house. It's not the first time she's told me she regretted having me because she wanted a girl, only this time she said it in front of everyone, including my friends. It's not like my friends didn't already know, we talk about these things, but it still hurt and completely ruined the day, to the point I had to leave. And I did, I went to my aunt's house because she offered to take me so I could get out of there. For those wondering why I moved in with her instead of living with my dad, despite what my mother has said, I didn't. Yes, I've been spending more time with my aunt and I've stayed over a few times, but I've lived with my dad most of the time. My mother just doesn't like that I see my aunt as a mother figure, and that we do a lot of things together because of it. I think it has to do with the fact that I never really had a mother, and I needed that. I also know about my aunt's husband cheating with my mother. I've known for a while, but I don't care, I just wanted to mention it because I think my mother has denied it. As for the smartwatch gift, well, it wasn't that. It was a watch, and maybe it had some smart features, but it was a children's watch, the kind where the packaging states the age range so the user doesn't swallow the parts. That's the kind of watch she brought me. I don't believe for a second that she skipped meals to buy it, and anyone who sees her in person wouldn't believe she skipped a meal either. I don't say that to mock her weight, but because it doesn't make sense for her to talk about sacrifice when she's never done something like that for me. Now, about the fight, the one my mother claims my aunt started. My aunt went over there to pick up some of my things, but my mother wouldn't let her in. On top of that, she tried to provoke her by talking about sleeping with her husband. Of course, it didn't happen in the exact order my mother described, but she likes to lie to make herself look good, and that's what she was trying to do with her post. My aunt wasn't even the first to hit. It was my mother, when she didn't get the reaction she expected from her sister. I only yelled at my mother to stop the fight, but she didn't until the police arrived. That's why they offered my aunt the chance to press charges, because even the neighbors had heard the shouting and saw the start of it. My aunt did press charges, but my mother wasn't arrested. She just faced some legal consequences, which we later used in court. The trial wasn't just to keep my mother away for a while. It was a trial because my aunt, my dad, and I were tired of her. That's why my aunt helped my dad sue my mother for all the years of neglect I endured under shared custody. I don't know why my mother asked for shared custody or why she was granted it, but it was a mistake, and we wanted to fix it. So the judge took it away and also ordered her, as a penalty, to pay child support to my father, the same as if she had never been granted shared custody in the first place. There was no restraining order, so I don't know what my mother means by the 90 days. Maybe that's when she finally made the full payment the judge ordered as compensation. Which brings us to that encounter in the supermarket, where I was alone. My aunt was a bit sick, and I offered to do her grocery shopping for the week. Up to that point, there had been a few run-ins with my mother, but I was always with my aunt or avoided going near her. This time, she approached me, and it was to attack me for making her lose a good amount of money. She told me again that she never wanted me and would never be a mother to me. That's fine by me, because I never asked to talk to her or have contact with her. I've been through a lot with that woman, and having her in my life is the last thing I want. This is already long enough, and going into past events would make it incredibly lengthy, but I think this gives you a good idea of what my mother is like. Comment. Yes, I knew it, and I needed it, I needed the son's version. Yes, your mother is worse than I imagined.